let's now transition to the NFC teams, starting with the last team to get in. Needed some help to get in, but got that help. The Seattle Seahawks, their biggest weakness, their run defense is terrible. For a team in Seattle that runs the ball so effectively, they cannot stop the run whatsoever. They are bottom 5 in the NFL in rush yards allowed, and that's some of the strengths of some of these NFC teams, including the team they're going to face Saturday, the San Francisco 49ers. With Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Brock Purdy is at least somewhat mobile. You're going to face teams like, if they were to make any sort of run, any sort of surprise run. Philadelphia, we know they can run the ball with Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. Minnesota can run the ball with Dalvin Cook. Dallas can run the ball with Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott. Giants can run the ball with Saquon Barkley. I mean, you've got to be able to stop the run in the postseason. And for as much as we make about teams like Dallas who can't stop the run, Philadelphia, same thing. Seattle's among the worst in the league. They are down there with teams like Houston, Chicago, teams that cannot stop the run whatsoever. That is Seattle's biggest weakness headed into the playoffs. I don't think it's Geno Smith. Look, he was top 5 in a lot of the categories that matter. Completion percentage, passer rating. Geno Smith did a good job this year. I'm worried about his lack of inexperience, but he's done a good job this year given what was expected of him. It's one of the biggest reasons Seattle even got to the playoffs. That's the Seahawks' biggest weakness. For the New York Giants, another supplies playoff team. What's their biggest weakness? I hate to say it, guys. They're limited at quarterback and at wide receiver. Incredibly, Kenny Golladay still probably their second best receiver, and he has 1 touchdown on the year. Darius Slayton, they've got him. They've got other guys, but the Giants are as limited receiver as any team in the National Football League. And Daniel Jones. Listen, folks, I like him. But asking him to be your franchise quarterback, the quarterback that, as I say, can take you there with his arm and with his legs, at what point have we ever seen that from Daniel Jones? I have a feeling this game Sunday is going to be a throw-off, if you will, against Kirk Cousins, who we know struggles in the playoffs. The guy has done plenty of damage to defenses with Justin Jefferson and the other weapons he has. Are we sure that Kirk Cousins is that guy to be able to do that type of damage? I'm sorry, not Kirk Cousins. Daniel Jones is that guy to do that type of damage. Brian Dable's done a remarkable job with him, but the reason that the Giants are even thinking about extending him is because of Brian Dable. So that's the Giants' biggest weakness. They're weak at probably the 2 positions in the NFL that you'd least like to be weak at. Quarterback, wide receiver. That's the Giants' biggest problem. Their division rival, the Dallas Cowboys, their biggest weakness, offensive line is awful, and weapons are below average. Cowboys' offensive line, bottom 3 in the NFL this year in pass block win rate. And aside from CeeDee Lamb, who separates as well as anybody in the NFL, Dalton Schultz is in the 70s in terms of separation. Michael Gallup and Noah Brown are in the 100s in terms of separation down the field. So we talk about Dak Prescott's interception issue, and some of those picks, as I said, have been absolutely Dak Prescott's fault. But you got to sit back and say for a minute, timeout. He's having to fit balls into tiny windows that other quarterbacks simply are not asked to fit them in because of the talent they have around them at wide receiver, tight end, and elsewhere. Dallas has a plenty good enough running game with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And the offensive line does a good job in run blocking, which, as we all know, is easier than pass blocking. Easier than pass protection. But the offensive line has struggled. Dak hasn't had time to throw. In terms of receivers separating down the field, that's been no bueno. That's the Cowboys' biggest weakness going into these playoffs. As for the team they're going to face on Monday night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what is their biggest weakness? Their offense is a complete roller coaster. Mostly been down, but in the times it's gone up, such as when they faced Kansas City, put up 31 points on the board. Yeah, a few weeks later, they put up 3 on Carolina. It was a good defense, by the way, but you don't know what you get from their offense. They can't run the ball with Rachaad White and with Leonard Fournette, which, as Byron Leftwich pointed out last week, that's not as big of an issue as people are giving it credit for because they couldn't run the ball last year. However, Mike Evans, up until that game against Carolina, had not scored a touchdown since October. Tom Brady's had one of the worst seasons of his career. Okay? Chris Godwin's had a good season, but it's taken him a while to get a rhythm coming out of his ACL surgery from a season ago. Julio Jones, and I love Julio. Julio's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my book. Man, he struggled to stay healthy and to separate at this advanced age and stage of his career. Russell Gage has not been near the difference maker that I thought he would be. The Bucs signed him. So offensively, not pushing the ball down the field. They're really not effective unless they go into tempo, hurry-up offense. That's the Buccaneers' biggest weakness going into these playoffs. For the Minnesota Vikings, their biggest weakness has to win close. Otherwise, they get bullied. Okay? Of the Vikings' 13 wins this season, 11 of them have been one-score games. Of the games they have lost this season, you look at the Minnesota Vikings going back to week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost that game by a final score of 24-7, 17-point margin. They did not lose a game until they faced the Dallas Cowboys, in which they lost by 37. Their next loss came at the hands of the Detroit Lions by 11. And their final loss of the regular season came to the Green Bay Packers, 41-17, a 24-point margin. If they do not win close, it is good night, Irene. They get smoked. They look bad situationally when they're trailing big, outside of when they played the Colts, who are even worse situations than probably any team in the league. We know Kirk Cousins' success or lack thereof in the playoffs. You know that for a lot of these Minnesota Vikings, guys like Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, this is their first playoff run. Not to mention, by the way, folks, their defense is just awful. Their secondary has been burned multiple times this year. It's the worst pass defense in the National Football League. The Vikings are bad unless they win close. For the San Francisco 49ers, their biggest weakness, they don't really have one. Their biggest weakness is just a fact. No rookie quarterback has ever led a team to the Super Bowl in the history, in the now 57-year history of the National Football League, or of the Super Bowl, rather. Can Brock Purdy be the first? We don't know. We've loved what we've seen from him this season. He's been far from a game manager. He's pushing the ball down the field. He's getting the ball accurately to the playmakers on this team. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Ayuk, Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, plenty of weapons on the outside to get the football to. Brock Purdy's done that better than Trey Lance did in the limited time he got. He's done it better than Jimmy G has, even because the fact that Jimmy G has been there for 4 or 5 years. Brock Purdy's been the best quarterback the Niners have had in that span. But no rookie quarterback's done it. Tom Brady did it in year 2. Dan Marino did it in year 2. But Ben Roethlisberger did it in year 2, although he was mostly led by the running game and the defense. But outside of that, I don't really see a weakness on this Niners roster. To me, they are head and shoulders above everybody else in the NFC. We've just never seen a quarterback get to the big game or lead his team to the big game. And is Brock Purdy going to be the first? I don't really have an answer. Only time will tell. And finally, Philadelphia Eagles, their biggest weakness, cannot stop the run, and frankly, lack of trust at head coach. Has there been one game this year, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll ask even Philadelphia Eagles fans this. Has there been one game this year where you sat back and like, dang, Nick Sirianni won that game for the Philadelphia Eagles? His coaching is the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons, that they won this game. No. At no point have you ever thought that at any point. You've questioned at times his clock management, at times against Dallas. I've certainly questioned that against the Saints, game planning wise. But the bigger story is running the football. So Tennessee, with Derrick Henry, did not run the football against Philadelphia. After that, despite smoking the New York Giants, okay, they gave up 123 yards rushing. Against the Chicago Bears, who we know can run the football, they gave up 157 yards rushing. Against the Dallas Cowboys, they gave up 115 yards rushing. Against the New Orleans Saints, who are completely one-dimensional offensively, they gave up 129 yards rushing. And against Davis Webb and the New York Giants in a game that meant nothing to the Giants, they gave up 129 yards rushing. And teams like the Giants, like the Niners, like the Cowboys, like the Seahawks that can run the football, you've got to be able to stop it. Philly can do it. Philly can beat you at your own game, but can they stop it? Can they get off the field in time for their offense to be able to do some damage, in time for Jalen Hurts to try and build any sort of rhythm going into these playoffs? Remains to be seen. And I have major questions about Nick Sirianni at head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. That is their biggest weakness in my view. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.